Barry Eugene Wilmore, Captain, Navy. I joined in 1986. It took a while to get in for various reasons, but I went to Aviation Officer Candidate School. My Marine Corps drill instructor was Tiberius Gerhardt, Gunnery Sergeant, United States Marine Corps, and I loved the discipline. 14-week wonder, completed that, and was fortunate enough to be the, regimental commander, and went through and got commissioned and as an ensign. And from there, headed down to Corpus Christi for flight school. Went through the initial flight school, primary flight school. Of course, I joined the Navy because I had this, dream of maybe potentially landing on aircraft carriers. So the first wicket to do that was to select jets out of primary, which fortunate enough to get that. And from there, I went to Meridian, Mississippi, the Fighting Frogs, and flew T-2s. Went to the ship for the first time, USS Lexington. Got my 5 arrested landings. And then moved on to VT7, flying the A4. Went to the USS America on the ship that time. Got the whatever number of landings we got there, and selected A7s to fly the Corsair II. Went out to Wilmore, California. I think that was VA 122, as I recall, and went through that training. And when we went to the ship there, it was USS Independence. And from there, selected East Coast. Went to VA 105 and did my first deployment on the USS Forrestal to the Mediterranean. Came back from that, somewhat of a unique story. Hadn't been back a couple of months, took some leave finally, and went home and my mom and dad built a pool after I left the house. So I'm sitting next to my pool with 2 high school buddies, and they're like going, "What's going on with this Hussein guy? I mean, well, you have to be involved if anything happens." And I'm like, there's no chance of me doing anything, because the USS Forrestal, my ship was getting retrofitted or getting changed out so it could handle Hornets, F-18s, and my squadron was going to transition to the F-18. I said, there's no chance. As I'm saying those words, my XO is calling my house, and my mother answers the phone. She comes out, she says, "Barry, your XO wants to talk to you." And my call sign was Butch by this point. So Butch, he said, I need you to come back. I can't tell you why. I just need you to come back now. So I got my truck and I started driving back from Tennessee back to Cecil Field in Florida. And when I got there, I found out that I was getting pulled from that squadron and sent to VA 72, who was deploying no notice on the USS Kennedy, heading over to support what was taking place in Kuwait. So I did some quick field carrier landing practice, FCLP, got ready and headed out, and went with that guys I didn't know, and at sea again. So basically, as it turns out, I spent almost 2 solid years at sea with a couple of little breaks, because I went over, did all of Operation Desert Storm, which was the Desert Shield, which was the build up to Operation Desert Storm, and was through that. Went through night. I was the day 1 player. The actual conflict started at night. We had guys that went in for the first night wave. I was on the first day wave, and throughout the whole process completed a total of 22 combat missions, and various stories that I could tell about those things. And but I was only on a concurrent fit rep. I wasn't assigned. I was assigned to the squadron, but I wasn't transferred to them. So when the conflict was over, 8 months later from the time I left, start heading back, I got flown back. I didn't ride the ship back to the U.S. I got flown back because I went straight to the F-18 RAG to transition to the Hornet, because I was going back to my original squadron that I had gotten sent away from, who had transitioned to the F-18 while I was gone. So I went right into the F-18 RAG. I put in an application for test pilot school, the test pilot program, and fortunately got selected for that. So I didn't do a full tour even though I'd done 2 deployments. I still didn't do a full JO tour. I left, I guess that was 92 by this point. January of 92, and went to Patuxent River, went through test pilot school, and then I went from there across the base to Strike. It has a number now. I don't know what that is, but it was called Strike when I was there. And I flew A7s and did all the initial tests on the T-45 jet trainer. Took the ship for the first time, first time to tow a banner, stuff like that, do some ACM, and do the guns pattern that they do in the training command. They did. They don't do it anymore, I don't think, with the T-45. Anyway, did all that, and came time for me to go back to the fleet, and I wanted to go back to the fleet and I went to VFA 83 after a short stint in the RAG to do some, weapons and air-to-air ACM type training. Went to VFA 83, deployed on the Enterprise, the first nuclear carrier, and Operation Southern Watch at this time, flying over Iraq and other places, which is, was quoted, it was green ink, which means combat time because it was over the hostile area, though we didn't drop any bombs while I was there. And then I went to the weapons school there at Cecil Field for 9-ish months, was the OPSO of the weapons school. The VFA 83 was a senior JO tour. I'm still a lieutenant, because I was on my second deployment as a lieutenant JG. So I'm senior JO for that VFA 83 tour. Then I went to the weapons school. I was the OPSO at the weapons school for 9 months. And then I went to VFA 34, and that was my department head tour. And went through that process and actually wound up getting pulled out of that a little early. I'd gotten on my wickets checked for command, to make command hopefully of an F-18 squadron. And through the process of all this, intermingled in here, I completed a couple of master's degrees, electrical engineering from my original college, Tennessee Tech, and then an aviation systems degree from the University of Tennessee. And when one of the guys I had served with in VFA 83, Tushar Tembe, who wound up commanding an aircraft carrier, I don't remember which one, but he actually passed away while he was in command of the aircraft carrier. Anyway, at the time he was the placement officer, calls me when I'm in VFA 83, that's when I got pulled out early, he said, hey, the instructor position at Air Force Test Pilot School has opened up. Would you like it? And I said, well, let me go talk to the XO. The XO, who I really respected, Speedy Hafner, he said, Butch, I think your record's strong enough where you'll screen, because he was a former placement officer, you'll screen for command, going and doing a transition, no, not transition, but a tour with the Air Force won't hurt you, I don't think. So sure, go do it. So I went and did that. While I was at Air Force Test Pilot School, as an instructor, flying the F-15 and the T-38, I was interviewed by NASA as an astronaut, and that was the second interview I had, and this one they selected me. So then I went to NASA. So the last half of my Navy career was spent as an astronaut with NASA, where I am currently. I flew on 2 space missions thus far. STS-129 on Atlantis, the Space Shuttle Atlantis. I piloted that in 2009 up to the space station, just under 2-week mission, doing various things. And then I trained for long duration after that, a lot of overseas training because we train all over the globe. Flew on a Soyuz in 2014 up to the space station, was commander of the space station, was there for 6 months, came back in 2015, and at the end of that year, I got a really nice letter from President Obama. It said, thank you for your 30 years of honorable service. You will be retired on 1 December. Because as an 06, you can only serve 30 years. And I knew that. I knew when I went to NASA that if it didn't work out to where I could fly in space and do the things that I hoped to do there and return to the Navy pretty quick, that I would retire as a captain, because nobody makes admiral out of the astronaut corps. There have only been 3 admirals in the history of astronauts. Alan Shepard, the first U.S. astronaut, U.S. astronaut to fly in space, and T.K. Mattingly made admiral. I don't know specifics if he went back to the Navy or not. And then there was one more. I forget. Truly, Dick Truly. So going that you're not probably going to make flag. And Columbia tragedy happened in 2003, where we lost Columbia. We didn't fly in space at all for 3 years. So that put the timeline as far as flying in space for me, and commanding a space shuttle, which I hope to do, made it much longer to where I couldn't return to the Navy. Though I would have loved to. Anyway, so got that nice letter from President Obama, retired in 2016, and I'm still with NASA, still an active astronaut, training right now to fly in space. And I'm here today because the guy that was one of my roommates when I was at Patuxent River going to the test eventually made two-star Admiral Paul Soule. And here at this facility today, he is retiring, so I'm here to support him in his retirement. That is it in a nutshell.